Sweet.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Right.
Do you have to pick the skull out when you...
No, does the skull get crunchy enough to...
It is. No, the skull is crunchy. This nurse comes up with this tray of needles.
Probably 24 snakes coiled around her.
Hello and welcome to Laughed Up Abroad podcast, where you can find all the most outrageous, hilarious, and embarrassing travel stories. I'm here today with my very good friends Chris and Brad, who spent a year in China a few years back, and if you can imagine, if you've ever been to China, there's some culture clashes going on over there. Say what's up, guys.
What's going on?
How we doing?
They have some pretty hilarious stories. I've heard them a few times. I'm actually really excited to be sharing them. Listening to these two banter back and forth about their experiences in China was what gave me the idea for Laughed Up Abroad. So this is actually really exciting for me. These are some great stories. I'm pumped about it. Cultural clashes. I know you guys had a lot of fun with the food. I'm going to try to get some of these pictures up on the laughedupabroad.com. Tell me about the food over there and your experience and kind of your philosophy going into the food in China, because I know it's pretty different than what you're used to.
I think you need the picture of you eating the pigeon head.
Pigeon head.
That's one of my favorite food pictures.
So before I went over there, I wanted to make sure I had the full experience of China. So I'll basically eat anything anyway. So when I went over there, I was like, I want to try everything at least once. I'm not going to turn it down no matter how disgusting. So the list is crazy. I ate like pig brains, a pigeon head with the beak and all. Eyeballs.
So they don't
brains.
Clean it, or they just chop the head off and fry it up and serve
Did
it.
you have to pick the skull out when?
No.
you...
Does the skull get crunchy enough?
It is. No, the skull is crunchy. the brain is mushy. The brain is mushy.
So it's a nice contrast of textures.
Exactly.
It really is just a fried head.
Yeah.
When you look at the picture.
Things you don't even want to admit.
Duck penis.
Duck penis.
Duck penis.
Congealed.
How do they prepare the duck penis?
It doesn't.
Like, do they?
It doesn't look like what you'd. It doesn't look like what you'd expect.
Do they? Is it fried? Is it battered?
No, it's raw.
Come on.
So hot pot. It's that's the place where you get the craziest foods.
It's like fondue. It's like oil fondue, or
So you get the raw ingredients. You cook them.
They
in
bring out. The most tame
raw.
version of it is they bring out very thinly sliced meats and vegetables, and then there's a pot of broth in the middle of the table that you. It's usually pretty spicy on one half, and then there's another pretty bland other half, right? So you just drop your food in there, let it cook for a minute or two, and then you can eat it. But you can get some pretty tame stuff, but the craziest stuff I've ever eaten was through there too.
In terms of aggregated, insane things piled up next to each other.
So wait, is this where you ate the pigeon head too?
No. That was in another city.
Okay.
That was in.
But duck penis that's a hot pot.
That maybe they
I remember definitively thinking that the most recognizable thing in the hot pot agglomeration was frog legs. That was like, oh, I've seen that before.
That was the most comforting food.
I've heard of that.
No, so they would bring out like sliced beef really thin that was like delicious and everything, and then they would bring out something that was just like almost, it looked congealed like meat.
Yeah,
I think it was.
And it was. I found out a couple minutes after I ate it that it was a duck penis. So
they had congealed duck blood, I think, as well.
Duck blood,
that was
that's another thing. Yeah, they would just add like something to basically how you make Jello. But
so you're eating the food. You're in Xiamen, which is an island pretty close to the coast,
right,
of the mainland China.
It's connected to the mainland by a couple bridges.
Is there? What's the American population like there? You guys were pretty much the only two Americans in your company, but were there like a fair amount of other Americans you came across in Xiamen?
I think there were maybe 30.
Yeah. Okay. So there was a reasonably sized university there, and that university attracted a few sort of internationals, and then there's a small business community.
Okay.
And so in terms of permanent community that we...
But so there's like a business section of the city
right,
where most of those people lived. But where we were living was like right in the heart of it.
Yeah,
I mean, there were people that had never seen another white guy.
Wow.
But so we'd go for a walk in the neighborhood, and people would come by and take pictures of us. You know,
All
or
the
like
children go,
they want to touch your curly hair.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
got blonde curly hair. They're not used to seeing that. over
Yeah,
here.
blue eyes and sort of a half a foot
Shaman.
taller than everyone else. It'd just
So
be
as
like-
far as food goes, did they attempt to like do an American style eatery in Xiamen? Or was it just like no, you get our duck penis and you're gonna like it?
No, there's a couple places that would attempt. You know, I mean, you could still go find a KFC.
yeah, that's
know.
right.
Well, that's
But-
pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah, KFC,
exactly.
McDo's, McDonald's, and then there were one or two places that sort of attempted. There was like a decent pizzeria for internationals and a decent, actually Coyote, that Mexican place was all right.
Yeah.
And mostly, they had a couple places that would attempt to do this, but it was sort of, they always managed to do something that would sort of tweak it to try and curb the original thing into a
really common American style dish would be like the shittiest spaghetti you've ever had on like a third of the plate, a piece of like fried chicken, and then a fried egg.
Just like,
the egg. They love to put a fried egg on top of everything.
just
Like
like
that was
Mama used to make it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just throw it all together in one plate and call it dinner.
And then like the other thing was coffee. Like, you know, they really don't know what they're doing. Like, it's like not. I think it's like an elite thing. I don't really know.
Yeah, it's very middle.
But they would make it by cup. You know, each individual cup. So this would be like the first time these people ever made a cup of coffee. And sometimes they would make it so strong that I, one time at lunch, had a cup of coffee and had to go home. Because I was so
jittery.
I had such an overload of caffeine sitting at my desk at work that I was like, guys, I gotta go.
I think that they like made you a regular cup of coffee, but with cappuccino.
Yeah, it was unreal.
Espresso beans.
Yeah.
They just like took espresso beans and made drip coffee out of it, and then like you had overdoses of caffeine.
Yeah,
it was a little intense.
That was terrible.
That's what Gangnam Style. There's like a whole part of that silly song is all about the elite coffee culture in Asia. It's like an upper middle class thing.
I don't know.
Now
Knowledge is power.
My one pop culture reference that I know, because that was also
That's awesome. Now all right. So you guys were telling me earlier about how you just walk into a butcher and see like a goat head just chilling right up front, which I feel like is only really shocking to like basically just Americans. I feel like most places are like, it's a dead animal. But there's also, Chris had a pretty funny experience with a live animal on the bus that is one of my favorite stories from coming over there.
Yeah.
With the lady.
Yeah, so I was taking a bus to somewhere downtown or whatever, which is about like a 10-minute, 15-minute bus ride from where we lived. And we're in line waiting at the bus stop, trying to get on this bus, and there's this little old lady who's like 4 foot.
Right.
4'2".
The ones that will elbow you.
With a bag, and the bag is moving, and it's clear, and you can see there's an eel in it.
yeah.
And I can't read any Chinese, but when the bus pulls up, we're like single file line getting on the bus, and there's a sign apparently that says, no live animals. Because like only in China, people are trying to bring live animals on buses. But so the bus driver like gets up and starts screaming at this lady about the eel that's in her bag moving around. She can't take it on the bus. So she's screaming back in Chinese. I have no idea what they're saying, but I'm on the bus at this point, and I'm like sitting watching her, and I watch her get down off the bus. And like she winds up like 10 feet from the bus, and like Randy Johnson style hucks the eel at the side of the bus. And the eel is like just cooked at this point. And she walks up to the bus and picks it up and gets back on the bus and just like flaunts it. And the dead eel right in his face.
Aces this eel on the side of the bus.
She threw a strike, man. It was awesome. And just nailed this thing. And that was it. And that was like the first couple weeks of me being there. It was the most surreal thing.
Welcome to China.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's going to be.
I remember in terms of exchange of food things, one of my favorite experiences was it was your birthday. And we had gone to Hong Kong recently, and I had brought back like cocoa and like I bought stuff to make a cake from like as scratch as you can scratch.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't just get like generic
Duncan
stuff.
Hines over
Yeah,
there.
you couldn't just go get Brady Crocker.
Yeah, right.
From the thing. And
So
we
premix.
didn't have we didn't have an oven. We had this shitty toaster oven. And I spent so much time hand making frosting and like making this tiny little chocolate cake for Chris's birthday. I like decorated it. We brought it into the office and we cut it up and we gave a piece to everybody in the office like you would on a birthday.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, we brought you some stuff as well." And they handed out everyone in the office pig knuckle. like marinated, cooked pig knuckle. And everyone took a bite. So me and Chris were like, "Sweet cake," and they were all like, "Sweet pig knuckle," and everyone took a bite of like we divvied it all up, and we took one bite of pig knuckle, and we're like, "We are not eating this shit." And then they took one bite of this like cake that I had slaved over, and like threw it in the garbage, like subtly, like we're not eating this crazy Western fatty disgustingness.
Yeah,
I was
gross.
going
Get
through
back to your pig knuckles.
I was going through some photos recently and like videos from the trip over there, and there was a video of me like having like a Skype chat or something with someone back home, and I'm recording this as Lyndon, our boss, comes in and gives us the whole office another present, which he brought in at like noon. He comes in with a huge box. There's like 10 different bags in there, and there's live crabs.
Nice.
And he handed all of us live.
Just a crab.
Yeah.
And there's a video of me talking to someone back home, just pulling, like looking in the bag and being wondering what this is, and I pull it out. I'm like, he got me a live crab. There's like 10 of them.
Someone's on the other end of a Skype conversation, like, what the fuck?
It's really funny.
Did you get frogs as a present once?
No. We were driving to work. You remember he picked us up that morning, and I'm sitting in his back in his seat. And I'm like, "Lyndon, what's in the bag back here?" And I pull up, and it's like 3 dead frogs.
Just,
no
context. Just dinner.
Yeah.
Maybe a hot pot.
That's phenomenal. So you both, I mean, you guys ate, what's the craziest thing, or the least appetizing thing you ate over there in China?
So for me, and I think you guys have heard this story, but my experience, there are a lot of disgusting things. We could sort of go into the abstract.
But there are also a lot of good things, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of good
by and large.
Oh, delicious.
Delicious food.
Delicious, yeah.
So I don't want to give the wrong impression.
No, I mean, you go get any street food or, typical cuisine,
Right.
like, it's usually delicious.
Yeah. How does it compare to what a typical American would be used to when they go out to get Chinese food? I mean, is it?
I mean, you're
remotely
not gonna find the General Tso's or the lo mein. I mean, you probably find some similar.
The regional stuff is what the distinction is. So in the north, you sort of have this noodle and vegetable and like traditional. It would be very familiar to someone from America. If you got noodles and vegetables and beef, or noodles and vegetables and chicken, that would be and that's sort of northern culture. And then the sort of Szechuan noodle spicy soup stuff is the sort of central China stuff.
Exactly.
And that I think exists in American. If you like actually go to Chinatown and
Probably the closest.
Right.
So, but where we were, I mean, some of the best seafood I've ever had in my entire life was in Xiamen.
Yeah.
Because it's this island, and everything's fresh. You walk up to a restaurant, and you not only pick your dish, you pick the fish.
Wow.
The live fish you want to eat.
Yeah, very fancy restaurants are like an aquarium. You walk in, and there are just fish tanks that 24 fish tanks. The better the restaurant, the more fish tanks there are around.
Right.
And you just go, that one. I want,
And they prepare it up, and it's amazing. They have this crab dish there that's, you get 10 or 15 blue crab essentially in this sauce that's it's just unreal, and it costs like $3.
But you weren't there for the snake meal. So when I first moved there, within the first like 2 or 3 weeks that we were there,
you were there for a few months before Chris got
about
there.
3.5 months before Chris got there. We went out to dinner. We were taking this factory owner out to dinner to sort of do business, and we went into this restaurant. And they wouldn't tell me what the menu was. Mm-hmm. And at some point, this very attractive young Chinese woman walks in, and she's got probably 24 snakes coiled around her.
Live snakes?
Yeah, live snakes coiled around her of every variety that you can think of. Boa, green snakes, and just like coiled, all like, decked out in snakes. And they asked me, what do you want? And I was like, so I'm a vegetarian, so that's sort of the context of food for me. I branched out a little bit, but I am still trying to retain my vegetarianism. And they were just like, oh, just point to one and we'll cook it for you. And eventually I was like, no, this person is the guest of honor. Like we're taking them out to dinner, let them choose.
Sure.
So he chooses this gigantic, I swear it was a boa, but I don't really know my snakes that well. She like uncoils it. It's like around her neck and waist and stuff, and like fucking takes it out. And then just grabs a butcher knife from behind her belt and just goes ka-thunk and just chops the head off of this snake.
Right in front of everybody.
In front of everybody. And then hands the snake to the guy. And he puts the bleeding end of the thing in his mouth and tips the end of the snake up and just drank the blood. And I was like, what? I have to leave. I'm sorry.
I didn't know I wanted to an Indiana Jones movie at this. Like, what? We are such pussies in America.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, I drank a snake bite.
That's how you start a night.
That's a good way to start a night.
There's one other thing when you brought up a cake. The Chinese are really good at their traditional food, but when they try to adapt to Western food, they really screw it up.
Right, and that could get taxing after a while, I imagine. Trying to
so taste of home. Baked goods is where they really screw up.
There's not a strong tradition of baking
and
things.
Brad being a huge fan of baked goods.
We lived together in college. Chris knows that I like to bake.
So you finally found these baked goods.
As a vegetarian, I sort of struggle to find a lot of things occasionally, and I will absolutely admit that I am not as adventurous when it comes to food as Chris. And so occasionally I would get these cravings for like, I just want something from home that actually tastes like a thing from home. Because the pizza and the Mexican food that you would find was like, okay, this is decent, but it's not New Haven pizza, of course, from Pizza Hut. And we were out looking. I had a terrible day. I think it was pretty stressful what we were doing at the time, and I really wanted some comfort food. And we went to the local. I don't know. Was it a grocery store? I don't even think it was just like a bakery or something like that was there. And I was so pumped because I saw in this corner of this bakery muffins, and there was like all this crazy Chinese stuff everywhere else, and then over in this little corner I was like, oh my god, they've got muffins, and that is exactly what I want to satisfy this craving of like sweet bread that we love as Americans. Like that's breakfast somehow. Muffins are really cake disguised as a breakfast
frostingless cupcake. I love it.
So I'm pumped. I'm so ready to just like dig into this muffin. And we bought a package of them and brought them back to the office. And I'm like privately like celebrating this moment of being able to like go home and like reconnect with my family. And I pull it out of the package. And of course I don't read enough Chinese to actually know what's in the packaging. And I took one bite, and I was like, this is not a muffin. This is the texture and shape of a muffin.
Similarities.
But I'm pretty sure that there is meat in this muffin.
That's
And
awesome.
I remember just pausing and being like, wait, am I tricking? Is this like the packaging? Is it just like terrible plastic aroma? And I think I gave it to you.
Yeah.
And you took a bite and you were like, yeah, these aren't blueberries
Nah,
in
it's
here.
fucking fish.
And we gave it to Lyndon to translate. He was like, oh, fish muffin.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, just fish muffin?
Fish
That's
muffin.
like, yeah.
Fish
He's
muffin.
like, fish muffin. And I was like, I was so devastated. I was so ready for like this like comforting feeling of home. And they've even managed to mess up muffins.
Fish muffins.
Fish muffins.
I mean, I've eaten. some
I think it
pretty
had the
crazy stuff.
flakes on it too. That was the other
This
thing.
is. I was just gonna
Yeah.
bring this up.
I mean,
This is-
I've eaten some pretty crazy food over there, but I would none of it was gross enough that I wouldn't at least try it again, except for like two foods, and one of them was this thing they would, I guess, translate to pork flakes
pork flakes.
or pork floss.
Floss, yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a better
Which is-
descriptor of what it
I
actually
think the
sort
best
of
way of
the texture.
describing it is it's like pork flavored cotton candy.
Is it,
Yeah.
No, I've never knew this about. Is it made from pork? Is
No.
it pork flavored?
No, I actually I don't know how it's made, but it
It is animal based though.
It is animal based
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And they would put it on like a Boston cream donut.
Oh yeah, that's right. We had donuts.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the sushi.
You know what this donut needs? Pork.
pork flakes.
No, dude, it's not like pulled pork either. It's
It
like
sort of dissolves on your tongue. I think that's a pretty important descriptor.
Like,
But
the point is, I've eaten few foods where I wanted to puke immediately after, and this is definitely one of them.
because I remember
Wow.
eating sushi with it.
Yeah, we had that. We went to that tiny.
I
Japanese
still
place.
can picture you spitting it out.
Yeah.
Like this, like very slow processing.
Yeah.
I'm like watching the
I
brain
felt like
work.
that shit was following. me.
And that's saying a lot because Chris has a
I've
whole
seen you-
album
Yeah.
of photos of things he's eaten.
I've watched you
including
eat
the thing,
some
the
fucked up
pigeon heads and the
Yeah,
brains. And the fact that the one thing that like you spit out
Yeah.
is just pork, but
Pork
just
flakes.
rendered in some
Yeah, this is
bizarre fashion.
This is the work of the devil. You know, this is terrible.
I want to know what the other thing was because you said there were two.
Oh, the other thing is a specialty at of Xiamen. It's a jelly sea worm.
Oh yeah.
So this
Jelly
is
sea worm.
yeah. This is
Some grass
been
fed-
like an infamous story.
I think it's
Where,
important. It's important to know how it's made.
Yeah, so it's basically a worm that they pull from the beach. You know that I don't even know what kind of worm it is.
It just looks like a slug.
Yeah,
a
it looks like a slug,
elongated
yeah.
slug.
And what they do is to prepare it, they put it in like a little cup, and they add a gelatin thing to like
Well, they boil first. They
it.
boil.
Yeah,
They put a bunch of them in a pot with some water, and they add the gelatin, and they boil the crap out of
Yeah.
it, so that they sort of become a diffuse worm as opposed to a centralized tube.
yeah.
Of
Yeah.
stuff.
So
So all the bits are still in it.
It's like the fishiest tasting thing ever. I mean, I really like fish too, but the consistency of it is so disgusting, and
You ever get
I-
the crunchy bits when you eat Jello? You know, like
Sure.
the difference between like
Yeah.
a regular consistency of Jello and then like the edge where it's a little bit extra
Yeah, right,
crunchy
right,
yeah.
with the fruit, or especially if you put fruit in it.
Yeah.
Imagine the fruit being the intestines of a
Yeah,
worm
I mean,
that dwells in the
of a
sand.
slug.
And
Yeah.
equally as bad as tasting it is watching the locals just mouthy.
yeah.
So now, do they still hold the shape of a body as you're of a worm as you're
No, I
eating
mean,
it,
you
or is
can
it like
see
you
it.
slice it
You can
like
see
a?
it in the Jello, like it looks,
So, oh, God.
looks like a little Jello cup.
Yeah, so it's a Jello cup with
like
a worm.
like an
inside
ice
it.
cube, like they pour the boiled stuff into an ice cube tray that then congeals into a little circle.
Yeah.
and then it's got this sort of roundy
Yeah, it's
thing.
Like flan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, very much like the texture and shape of a flan. But then they also put like crazy sesame spicy stuff. on
Put
it.
some pork flakes on there. Why not?
Yeah. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. Actually.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Now, all right, so I don't want this to come off too much like this is like culture clashes. Most of the food out there delicious.
Yeah.
A lot of culture clashes, some
yeah.
strange things you're not quite used to. Old women murdering eels in front of you. But like so, with the mistranslations thing in between, particularly between the Chinese and American cultures, like a pretty classic, funny thing. I've seen some pictures of like the menus where they're like mistranslating stuff.
I have a picture of a menu from an American style restaurant. And there's one of the items on it is scrambled rape.
Yeah, this is.
I don't even know what that means. It scares me now. It's scary.
Oh, there was a while where I knew these sort of word for word, but we should definitely get a picture of that menu because that's.
I know you guys have those pictures.
I have a picture in front of I have a picture from the bathroom, like urinals that says "Step closer to civilization."
That's my favorite one.
Yeah,
I still circulate that from time to time.
Imagine if you saw that while you were tripping on coffee. How mind blowing that would be.
Oh man.
So all right, so you guys got pretty adventurous with the foods. Traveled around. Chris, this kind of landed you in a bit of a hairy situation health wise, did it not? I mean, you.
Yeah.
Also, bear in mind they're living out here. Again, by and large, everything's healthy. You guys were fine out there, but living out there, trying everything, you got a little food sick.
If you spend any amount of time in China, if you're there over a month, you're bound to get some sort of food poisoning. It just happens.
I think that's we shouldn't single out China for that because I have lived in South America, I've lived in London, I've been to Africa, Australia. Yeah. Generally speaking, if you go to a country that you're not familiar with, sort of the water and the diseases and blah blah blah. Yeah, exactly. There's a 3-week period where you just sort of build up crap and then eventually you sort of get food sick.
Hashtag travel tip. Yeah, you gotta plan for a few days of.
If you're gonna be anywhere for 3 weeks, and just plan on it.
I ate every kind of street food possible, even the worst stuff that you could even think of.
Don't look up what is it, the gutter oil or whatever.
Gutter oil, yeah.
Gutter oil? With it,
it's like they. Apparently, there was just on the news pretty recently where a lot of Chinese street food vendors were dumping their oil down the gutters, and then a half mile down the road, someone was scooping up that same oil and then boiling it off, and then reusing it.
Yeah, because the water separate the oil and the water separate, so you can skim it off, and then they'll. Yeah,
I don't know. So anyway, I got super sick after a month of being there. I remember just laying on our pleather couch, with my face just sweating glued to this thing.
Oh my god.
Oh man,
And it's hot there, right?
Yeah, it's
two seasons.
It's tropical.
Yeah. You have the wet season and the dry season.
So being food sick is miserable enough. Being food sick in humid hot weather.
Yeah.
I was more food sick. I had food poisoning on Thanksgiving, and I was Skyping with my parents, green faced and just throwing up rice, and definitely it's a pretty miserable situation when you're sick. But.
So I was sick long enough that I was convinced that I was dying or something was really wrong.
I'm genuinely concerned,
and said I need to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I asked my boss to take me to the hospital, and he said I can't take you. But my brother can take you, who does not speak a word of English.
But swears really well in Chinese. I know all of my swear words in Chinese.
That's a valuable,
very important
resource. Yeah, absolutely.
So he comes up to our apartment, which is on the 8th floor with no elevator. That was a joy. And he helps me down, and this is after 5 or 6 days of just being so sick. Yeah, it was so bad. So they take me to the hospital, and. We were in the waiting room for an hour or two. And this guy, obviously, my boss's brother, had never been to the hospital before, so he didn't know how it functions. And
how old is he?
He's probably maybe 30.
Yeah,
maybe 30.
This is his first time.
First time ever going there. Yeah, exactly. And we waited.
He grew up in a mud hut.
We waited in the wrong place for a good hour. And finally, you need to go to the emergency room, not the stomach. Get there and. In the emergency room, and this nurse comes up with this tray of needles, and she asks what's wrong, knowing what I'm gonna say already, ready to stick me with one of these needles. Just the right one. So
depending on what you say, it's gonna work.
And I tell her basically I'm my stomach hurts, and her English is not bad or whatever.
Yeah.
But
That's pretty lucky.
She takes one of these needles where it's a huge needle. I don't really have problems with it either, but she comes over to me. She sticks the needle in and doesn't move. Like it's in my arm, and like she leaves it there for long enough that she has some other task that needs to get done in the time before she can like push whatever's in this thing.
And you don't know what's in.
I have no idea. And I'm like, I was asking her before, like, what the fuck is in this thing? Because I want to like look at it. I want to Google this, you know, before I'm freaking out. And she has to go do something else. I don't know. Check her email. But she asked my boss's brother to come over, and he's holding the needle in my arm.
Did he wash his hands?
No. There's no gloves.
His previous employment was a bouncer at a bar.
Yeah.
Or in a gang or something like really sketchy.
I've been there long enough to think like just to expect some of this craziness, but he's holding this needle for a good minute or two, and then she just like gives him a head nod to just push in. Like he knows what he's doing, or they're like buddies. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you got this one.
Yeah.
You know,
her weekend course in nursing has taught her enough.
Yeah. So he does that or whatever, and I look it up after, and it's just like some painkiller. It's like a strong Tylenol. It wasn't anything crazy. But what they're doing is they can't do anything for being food poisoning. Right. So they're just pumping me full of fluids. And after like an hour of doing this, I gotta take a leak so bad at this point, and I don't know how to say that in Chinese. Like
they don't teach you that.
They didn't teach. They probably did. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm like, I need to like get up, but they have my arm stuck with this thing. This bad IV. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just get up and I like make some hand motion that I really have to.
I would love to have
what
seen
hand motion did you?
You know,
this wasn't radio.
Yeah. And they get the picture, and my boss's brother follows me in with like
the IV
stand.
On the IV bag.
Oh, I'm so.
And there's no like individual stalls there. There's like trough.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. The
troughs. Yeah.
And he's like standing next to me, and we're just like making eye contact while I
whip it out.
Oh, it was terrible.
200 milliliters of
it was
saline
no progress.
fluid.
It was terrible. but I made it.
You made it though. Yeah. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So all right, so you guys got to spend a sizable amount of time in China, more time than I think most people who are traveling get to spend certainly in one place. Yeah. What's one thing you would recommend somebody going over to China for any amount of time, whether it's a week or a year? Like, what's one thing you would tell them to brace themselves for? You gotta
just let loose on the personal hygiene thing. Lower your standards.
Sure. Bathrooms, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Bathrooms are filthy.
Yeah.
You're gonna experience some of that. Squat toilets.
Sure.
Things like that. If you're gonna experience China, you gotta try to do it like the locals.
Definitely. And that's good travel advice, in my opinion, for like anywhere you go. But.
Yeah, because you can go to China and do the tourist thing, but it's not gonna be thrilling. It's gonna be the same thing in every city.
Right.
There's gonna be people trying to sell you shit.
Yeah.
You're gonna stay in these hotels that are pretty subpar in terms of American standards, or you can go to
our upper middle class.
Or you can go try to find what the locals are doing.
Yeah.
And that's where you're gonna find the best food, interesting people, get yourself into some really fun stuff.
What's the traditional Chinese cheers when you're drinking out there? What is it?
It's ganbei.
Ganbei. That's like bottoms up.
I mean, bottoms up.
Ganbei.
Actually imported from the Chinese language.
Ganbei. I love it. And we were drinking New England Brewery Gandhi Bot. We are enjoying it.
Delicious.
Really.
I've had a blast talking with you guys. Like I said, these guys inspired this whole podcast, so I'm really pumped to have had them on here. Before we go, real quick, Brad, if there was one thing you could bring that you would recommend someone brings to China if they're going on a trip to China, what would you have them bring?
Bring your own spice rack.
Bring your own spice rack, because you don't want pork flakes on everything.
Yeah.
Chris?
Probably Probably toilet paper.
Just don't have toilet paper at all.
That's another story.
Literally. All right. This is a cliffhanger.
Just
right
Google
here.
it. Yeah.
That whole time, you'll never mention that there's no fucking toilet paper. I love you guys. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Laughed Up Abroad. Stay tuned next Monday for another hilarious travel story, and check out www.laughedabroad.com for pictures from this past week's episode and find out what a fried pigeon head looks like. A special kudos to New England Breweries, Gandhi Bot. We drank several of those during the interview, and it really tied the episode together. They don't sponsor me or anything, but it's some good beer. Check it out if you can. Thanks again for listening. Check back next Monday. Keep moving, and don't stop laughing.